This week's Parsha, Vayishlach, it presents us with one of the most mysterious and transformative episodes in the entire Torah. Jacob's encounter with the angel, or the mysterious man. The narrative is sparse, but charged with meaning. Vayivaser Yaakov levado. And Jacob was left levado, alone, levado. The single word levado is a doorway into the profound teaching of the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, Rav Moshe Chaim Ephraim of Sediligov, whose work, the Degel Machane Ephraim, we're studying this year with the rabbinical students up at Jewish Theological Seminary. This Hasidic master draws a luminous parallel between Jacob's levado, aloneness, and the levado, the aloneness of God. In Isaiah chapter 2, verse 11, the prophet says, V'niskav Hashem levado bayom hahu, and God alone, levado, will be exalted on that day. The Degel Machane Ephraim connects Yaakov's levado, Jacob's levado alone, with God's levado from Isaiah, teaching us that in our moments of solitude, we mirror the oneness of the Creator. When Jacob was left alone, it was not merely circumstantial. It was existential. It was essential. In that state of levado, of aloneness, he wrestled with the angel. He contended with his fears, and he emerged transformed with a new name as Yisrael, the one who wrestles with God. This message is about the transformative power of aloneness, how it mirrors God's own aloneness in unity as one. And it invites us into a self-discovery. It's important because we live in a time when loneliness and disconnection threaten our well-being. Yet these moments of solitude can become gateways, says the Degel, to profound growth and purpose. The Degel invites us to see our aloneness not as a state of isolation or abandonment, but as a spiritual opportunity. To be levado, to be alone, is to be invited into the deepest truth of your existence, that each of us is created in the image of God and is endowed with agency and capable of transforming the world. He uses a phrase from the Talmud that says that everyone should say, Bishvili nivra olam. The world was created for me. For me. It says the Degel, it's not just, it was created for you, but remembering that it was created for you becomes a way of untethering you from all of the others that you are hoping to impress. Your job is to build the world because you were the one it was created for. Each of us is a universe, he says, unto ourselves, and in that awareness lies the power to act with courage, creativity, and compassion. It's a radical teaching. Because we might have thought that Bishvili nivra olam, that the world was created for me, needs always to be balanced in another Hasidic teaching by a different saying, which is, I am but dust and ashes. Thinking about my aloneness and the power of my singularity can be narcissistic, inflating me. The world was created for me. And says the Degel, no. The world was created for you, and you each one individually, to remind us that we have the power to change the world. But that teaching is not without its own shadow, which I'm sure we can all relate to. The side of levado that is dark, that is the aloneness that can feel like a disconnection that leads to despair. The Torah itself acknowledges this shadow when God, of course, declares, Lo tov heyot adam levado. There's a levado that's not good. This earlier use of levado reminds us that isolation can be harmful, can cut us off from the relational bonds that sustain and nurture us. In our current world, we see this shadow in the epidemic of loneliness, in the mental health crises exacerbated by social fragmentation, and the sense of alienation that many of us feel, even though, or maybe especially because we're never alone. We always have the whole world in our hand. But Jacob's Levado teaches us how to navigate this tension between isolation and sacred solitude. He was not left alone permanently, remember. His aloneness was a moment in time, a necessary step in his journey toward becoming Israel. And even in that aloneness, he was not truly disconnected. He wrestled with an angel, a being that could be understood as a manifestation of his own inner self, or as a messenger of God, or his brother, the archangel of his brother, his unfinished business. His struggle reminds us that even in our solitude, we're always in relationship. We're in relationship with ourselves, with God, and with the wider world around us. But here the Degel's teaching opens, I think, yet another profound question. If Jacob's aloneness sets the stage for a wrestling match, does God's aloneness do the same? What's God wrestling with? If God is exalted, levado, alone on that ultimate day, is there too a cosmic struggle at the heart of creation itself? Just as Jacob's wrestling led to both a blessing and a limp, maybe God's aloneness too reflects a tension between triumph and vulnerability, between the triumph of good and the vulnerability and exposure to evil. This invites all of us to consider that even God's elevation as levado, alone, might mirror the paradox of strength and intimacy, showing that struggle is woven into the fabric of both human and divine existence. Ultimately, this cosmic wrestling invites us to see aloneness as a sacred paradox, holding the potential for both challenge and transformation. So what do we do with Ingber's message tonight? What do we do with this message from the Torah? We begin by reimagining and reframing our own moments of aloneness. Instead of running from solitude or drowning it in distractions, as all of us do, myself included, we allow it to refine us. We resist the pull towards fame, towards likes, the clamor for validation. We sit quietly, recognizing that our worth is intrinsic. And then, like Yaakov, like Jacob, we return from these moments transformed, ready to re-engage with others in meaningful ways. The Degel's teaching pushes us even further. It challenges us to embrace our aloneness as a means of purification and alignment with our deepest truths. Yet it does so with the understanding that aloneness is not an end in itself. The aloneness that Jacob experienced purified him, yes, but it also propelled him back into relationship. Right after the wrestling match with the angel, with the limp, he's on his way back to his family. He wants to bring with him the newly found self that the sacred solitude birthed in him so that he might now relate and connect. His transformation in that solitude was not really full until he came back to his family, into the realm of connection and community. Right now, in this world that we're living in, the profound pressure for external validation, let's just put it that way, is relentless. You can get lost for hours, days, months, years with building a presence, engagement, friending, liking. I'm already behind, right? Does anybody friend anymore? Is that even a thing? Social media platforms, they amplify the beauty, the teachings. Thank God for social media. Thank God. But they also amplify this itch to record everything that we're doing, to have it validated and seen, and to have every single moment recorded. It feeds the illusion that our worth is tied to the attention that we receive. And if you're someone who has struggled with that as one of your shadow pieces, you weren't seen enough in the world, oi gewalt. How to balance the healthy desire to be seen, to be validated, to be recognized, with the unhealthy shadow of its infinite insatiability. This pursuit leaves many of us feeling disconnected, as if our value is contingent on these fleeting opinions of others. And the Degel came along and said, step away from the noise. You were created alone. And God's aloneness is your aloneness. You don't need to do it for the sake of someone else. You know, there was a philosopher named Berkeley who founded the School of Empiricism, the British School of Empiricism, and he asked the famous question, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, right, did it really? We're living in a moment where if something is not recorded and posted for all to see, did it really ever happen? The Degel charged me this week. I could hear the Degel all week after I read this Torah saying, Ingber, B'shvili nivar olam, the world was created for you. You're alone. You don't need those eyes. You're alone with your God. What are you going to do to make the world a better place in this moment? The most persuasive idea, the biggest takeaway from the Degel tonight, is that aloneness is not a void but a sacred space where we discover our purpose and return to the world with renewed strength and clarity. The aloneness of Jacob, the levado of the divine, and our own moments of solitude are all invitations to reconnect with this truth. They are opportunities to let go of the need to prove ourselves to others and instead to focus on living with integrity and purpose. And yet the Torah also warns us not to linger too long in our isolation. We are, after all, relational beings, and our aloneness must ultimately serve to deepen our connections to ourselves, to God, and to the world. May we all find the courage to embrace our aloneness, to wrestle with our inner angels, and emerge with new names, new strength, and a renewed sense of purpose. And may we remember always that in our aloneness, we are never truly alone. We are held in an infinite embrace of the one of whom it is said, Levado yimloch nora. Levado. Ein od mi levado. We are held in that infinite embrace of that one who is always alone together with us. From one levado to another, we rise.